Hello, you're on the Reddit Reveals channel. It was a Tuesday when she locked the bedroom door. Not slammed, not shouted, just clicked it shut from the inside. And I stood there in the hallway with a clean towel in one hand and a bottle of almond shampoo in the other, like some tragic bellhop waiting for a tip that would never come. "No, Marcy," I said, loud enough to be heard. "It's fine. Really, I'll just shower in the sink again. It's totally fine." No answer. Only the muffled sound of her laughter through the door. But not at me. Never at me. That privilege had been passed to someone new. I didn't need evidence. I didn't need screenshots or late-night detective work. You can tell when you're not wanted anymore. It leaks out of every word, every pause, every perfectly timed silence. Marcy was good at silence. It used to be one of the things I loved about her. How she could sit in her room and make it feel full just by being quiet. Now she used silence like a weapon. Blades in the shape of nothing. I tried everything. I tried long walks. I tried washing every dish before she got home. I tried pretending I liked her podcast, one of those true crime ones where every episode ends with, and they never found the body. I think she liked that part the most. Then came the message. A note on the fridge, stuck between a dentist reminder and a coupon for soy milk. "Let's not talk today." That's all it said. In pink Sharpie, with a smiley face. Like silence was a date she planned. I stared at it for 12 minutes. Then I went to the closet, grabbed the dusty accordion folder with our marriage certificate, birth control receipts, emergency contacts, and, buried somewhere in the back, a pamphlet from the county clerk's office titled, "Thinking About Divorce." I wasn't thinking about it. I was doing it. When she came home that night, she kicked off her heels like a stranger. Didn't even ask where I was. Didn't notice the missing folder. I said, "We need to talk." She dropped her purse like it was full of bricks and muttered the same words as the note. "Not today." I handed her the envelope. She didn't open it, just narrowed her eyes and said, "You're being dramatic." "Maybe," I said, "but at least I'm not invisible." She crossed her arms. "Can you just think about it before doing something stupid?" And I did think. For almost a year. Every day, every minute, every night on the couch while she worked late. So I looked her in the eye, and for the first time in months, I smiled. "Not today," I said. The envelope sat on the table between us like a loaded weapon. She didn't touch it. She just stared at it with a smug little smirk that curled at the edges of her mouth, like she was watching a toddler pretend to be tough. "You're not serious," she said, reaching for her wine glass instead of the document. "This is a tantrum. You'll cool off." I sat down across from her. Calm. Too calm. That scared her more than if I had screamed. "You locked me out of the bedroom for 4 nights," I said, voice flat. "You haven't looked me in the eye in 2 months. I haven't touched you in 3. And last week you called me, what was it? Emotionally limp?" "Yeah, that." She rolled her eyes like I was listing groceries. "God, Callan, you're so sensitive. You always do this. Make everything about your little feelings. Like every time I say something sharp, it's abuse. Maybe I'm just tired of playing mom to a grown man." That hit like a bat to the ribs. I swallowed it. Like always. She kept going. "You don't fight. You don't push back. You fold. You apologize before I even finish yelling. That's not a man. That's a doormat with a beard." I wanted to get up and leave. But I stayed. I needed her to say it all. I wanted her to hear herself. Because for once, I wasn't going to explain what she already knew. I just let her talk. She didn't ask what was in the envelope. She didn't even look curious. She assumed it was empty. That it was theater. I stood up and went to the bedroom. Pulled my suitcase out of the closet, quietly. I didn't want a dramatic exit. I wanted a clean one. There was nothing of value to take. I packed 2 shirts, a charger, and the book I never finished because she said it was too depressing. When I came back, she was finally holding the envelope. "Divorce?" She scoffed, flipping through the pages. "What judge is going to take you seriously? You cried during a Pixar movie last week." "That was your movie," I said. "You picked it." She shrugged. "Exactly." I walked to the door, my hand on the knob. "Callan," she said suddenly, quieter now. "Just think about it, okay?" I turned to her. I think I wanted her to look different. Softer. Human. But she looked exactly the same. Beautiful. Sharp. Untouchable. "I already did," I said. "For 379 days. Then I opened the door and repeated her favorite words. "Not today." 3 hours and 16 minutes after I shut the door, my phone rang. I was sitting in my car in the back corner of an all-night laundromat parking lot. watching a flickering streetlight cast epileptic shadows across the windshield. Her name lit up the screen. I didn't answer. She didn't leave a voicemail. Instead, I listened to the buzz of the vending machine inside the laundromat. The hum of a place that felt exactly like I did. Too bright, too quiet, and entirely forgotten. The kind of place no one chooses to be, but everyone ends up in eventually. I had nowhere to go. No plan. Just space. And silence. And the strangest thing? It felt like relief. Until I saw the girl sitting on the curb, staring at her shoelaces like they owed her money. She couldn't have been older than 25, with a duffel bag at her feet and tears drying on her cheeks. I don't know why I asked. I could have driven off, found a cheap motel, pretended I wasn't the kind of man who noticed strangers crying in the dark. But I rolled down the window. You okay? She flinched like I'd thrown something. Then nodded. Then shook her head. I missed my bus, she said. And I'm too proud to call my dad. I nodded. I just filed for divorce and left my house with a book and 2 shirts. She gave a weak laugh. We're a Hallmark movie gone wrong. I offered her a ride. Not out of pity. Not for company. Just because I knew what it was like to be left somewhere by someone who swore they loved you. Her name was Evie. She used to play violin. Said her ex sold it while she was at work. Said that was the last thing she ever cried over. We drove in silence for a while. No questions. Just shared oxygen and quiet. Then my phone buzzed again. Same name. Same ringtone. This time she sent a text. You've made your point. Come home. I didn't reply. Instead, I pulled into a gas station and bought Evie a coffee and a map. One of those old, printed ones no one uses anymore. She traced a line to her sister's place 2 towns over. I drove her the rest of the way, just listening. When she got out, she hesitated. Thanks for not being creepy, she said. Thanks for not being afraid, I replied. She smiled like someone who hadn't in a long time, then disappeared into the dark. It was the first moment in a year where I didn't feel like a ghost in my own life. Back in the car, I stared at the unread message from my wife. I could have called. I could have said something cruel, or kind, or anything in between. Instead, I blocked her number. I didn't need to explain my absence anymore. Because for once, I wasn't the one who disappeared. 2 days passed. I was sleeping in a friend's basement. Technically, it was his mom's basement, but she was out of town and he owed me from the time I bailed him out of a crypto cult seminar in 2019, so I figured we were even. I didn't tell anyone what had happened yet. Not even him. Every time he asked how Marcy was, I just gave the kind of shrug you use at funerals when someone says, he was a good man. I thought that was the worst of it. The leaving. The silence. The hole in my routine where her cold shoulders used to be. But grief, it turns out, has a second act. And sometimes, it wears someone else's face. It was a Thursday. Cold, gray, uneventful. I was eating stale toast in pajama pants I hadn't washed in a week. That's when the doorbell rang. I opened it, expecting a package, maybe a misplaced pizza. But standing there was a man in a tailored coat, holding a manila folder and wearing the kind of smile people wear when they're about to ruin your day politely. Callan, right? He asked. I nodded. He extended the folder. You've been served. I didn't take it right away. What is this? He stepped back like he had a train to catch. Restraining order. Emergency petition. Don't worry, it's standard. You'll get your court date. The door was still swinging closed when I opened the folder. I read the first paragraph 5 times before it sank in. Marcy had filed a temporary restraining order. Against me. The accusation? Verbal manipulation. Erratic behavior. Suspected stalking. There was even a note about me harassing her place of work, which was wild, considering I didn't even know where she worked anymore. Last I heard, it was an art gallery that existed more on Instagram than in real life. My hands shook. Not with rage. Not even fear. Just confusion so deep it felt like vertigo. This wasn't a counterattack. It was erasure. She wasn't fighting me. She was trying to rewrite the ending. I went upstairs and stared at my phone. I still had her number blocked, but now I wondered if that even mattered. She'd found a way back into my life without even opening her mouth. When I called my lawyer, she said calmly, "You're not the first guy to get hit with this kind of thing. It's called preemptive reputation management." Preemptive what? She's building a story. In case you go public. Or in case you find something she doesn't want found. That's when it hit me. This wasn't about me leaving. It was about what I might have seen before I left. I didn't see it then, but I see it now. The timing wasn't random. Neither was the man at my door. And the folder I was holding? It had Marcy's signature, but the handwriting on the envelope wasn't hers. There are things you don't forget. The way someone ties their shoes, the way they sign their name, the way they underline the letter T like it's trying to escape the word. Marcy's handwriting was sharp, angular, too perfect. The envelope that held the restraining order? It was rounder, messier, like someone pretending they didn't care if it was legible. And I recognized it. Not instantly, no? It took me a minute. But when I finally remembered where I'd seen it, a birthday card 3 years ago, my chest turned inside out. It was her sister's, Delilah, the one who always laughed a little too hard at my jokes, who used to text me just to check in when Marcy was mad at me, who once asked if I ever wondered what it would be like to be with someone who appreciated the way I listen. I never told Marcy. I never replied to Delilah, but I didn't delete the text either. I don't know why. Maybe I was flattered. Maybe I was lonely. Maybe I was just weak. But now I was sure of one thing. Delilah wasn't just involved. She was orchestrating something. I tried calling her. No answer. Straight to voicemail. I went to her apartment. Empty. Mail piled up behind the door. One of those yellow final notice slips hanging off the knob. I knocked anyway. Nothing. As I turned to leave, the neighbor from across the hall peeked through his door like he'd been waiting for something interesting to happen. He looked about 70, wore a robe, and had one sock on. "You looking for the loud one?" he asked. I nodded slowly. "She moved out last week. Left in the middle of the night. U-Haul. 2 guys, lots of yelling. Took her cat. Left a couch." I thanked him. He didn't ask questions. Just nodded like this kind of thing happened often. Back in the car, I sat for a long time. My hands kept going back to the folder in the passenger seat. The restraining order. The claim that I was dangerous. That I was unstable. That I was possibly following her. And now the person who likely helped file it had disappeared. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a setup. But for what? And why now? That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the last 2 months in my head, trying to spot the moment when it shifted from unhappy marriage to full-on campaign. Then, just after midnight, I remembered something so small, so irrelevant at the time, it almost escaped me. 2 weeks before I left, I got an email from a gallery in Vermont. They said they were excited to host my wife's new exhibit. They wanted to confirm travel arrangements. But Marcy had told me she was working late at the restaurant that week. She never mentioned Vermont. I hadn't thought much of it. Maybe it was old info. Maybe the gallery had the wrong dates. I archived it without replying. But now I was opening my laptop, scrolling back through old emails, heart pounding. I found it. And then I found another. This one wasn't from the gallery. It was from someone named A. Hall. The subject line read, "Let me know when you're ready to talk about what she took." I stared at the screen for at least 10 minutes without touching the keyboard. The subject line didn't blink, didn't change, didn't explain itself. Let me know when you're ready to talk about what she took. No body text. No attachments. Just those 10 words. The email was sent 3 days before I served Marcy the divorce papers. 3 days. That meant someone else already knew I was about to leave before even I did. The address was vague. No photo. No signature. Just A. Hall from a server that looked like it was routed through Iceland. I hovered over the reply button, then closed the laptop. I wasn't ready. Not for whatever that message meant. Not yet. Instead, I walked. Aimless, cold, early morning wandering through a neighborhood that didn't belong to me. I counted 12 porch lights. For security cameras. One dog that wouldn't stop barking no matter how slowly I passed. I tried to focus on small things, physical things. My breath in the air. The weight of my coat. The ache in my jaw from clenching it too long. But I kept thinking, what did she take? What could she have possibly stolen that would make someone reach out to me? Money? No. We barely had any. Art? Maybe, but she didn't own any of it. She curated other people's work. Nothing she brought home was ever hers. Unless she brought home something she wasn't supposed to. I walked faster. By the time I made it back to the basement, my hands were shaking. Not from cold. From the idea that I had missed something massive hiding in plain sight. I reopened the email and hit reply. To A. Hall. What exactly are you accusing her of taking? Who are you? I hit send. Then I waited. 5 minutes. 10. Half an hour. Nothing. I almost gave up when the reply finally came. Subject. What she took. Message. You don't recognize the name, but she does. And that's why she's panicking. The painting wasn't hers. She sold it anyway. I tried to reach her first. She blocked me. You were next. She was using your name to cover the sale. She forged your signature on the consignment paperwork. I read it 3 times. Consignment paperwork. Forged signature. My name. It didn't make sense. She was always so careful. So image-obsessed. Why would she involve me in something like that? Unless she assumed I'd never find out. Unless she thought I was too spineless, too invisible, too numb to question anything. And to be fair, she wasn't wrong. Not until now. I searched our old shared documents. Dropbox, Gmail, even the desktop of the old laptop we used for taxes. It was all there. Receipts, shipping manifests, an invoice with my digital signature, a painting titled Study in Disappearance, sent to a private collector in Arizona. Price, $48,500. And the signature at the bottom? Mine. Only it wasn't. I remembered now. That week, she had asked for my password to update some info on our shared tax form. I didn't even hesitate. She said she'd handle it. And I let her. I had been used. Not as a partner. Not even as a person. But as a shield. A clean name for her dirty business. My phone buzzed again. Another email. From A. Hall. She's not scared of you leaving, Callan. She's scared you'll realize she was never really there to begin with. It was raining the night she came back. Not dramatic movie rain. No thunder. No lightning. Just that slow, relentless drizzle that soaked everything without trying. Like time itself was trying to dissolve the world piece by piece. I was still staying in the basement. My friend had left town for a wedding, so I had the place to myself. The quiet should have felt peaceful. It didn't. It felt like the breath you hold right before someone tells you the truth. At 11:13 p.m., I heard a knock on the door. Not the front door. The basement door. The one that led around the back, barely used, still swollen from the last storm. I didn't move at first. Just stared at it like it might disappear if I blinked slowly enough. Then the knock came again. Quieter, but insistent. I opened it. She was standing there in a soaked trench coat, eyeliner smudged, hair frizzed from the humidity. Her eyes, they weren't angry. They weren't sad. They were focused, like this was a mission, not a visit. And behind her, a man, mid-30s, leather jacket, wide stance, eyes that didn't blink nearly enough. Marcy spoke first. We need to talk. I looked at the guy. He said nothing, just scanned the room behind me like he was calculating exits. You brought someone? I asked, already knowing the answer. He's helping me, making sure this goes smoothly. You mean making sure I don't record anything? She didn't deny it. She stepped inside. He followed, didn't sit, just leaned against the wall like a hired shadow. She stayed standing too. Didn't ask to come closer. Didn't even look at me until she spoke. Delete the emails. I blinked. What emails? Her jaw tightened. Don't play dumb, Callan. You think A. Hall reached out to you because you're a victim? You're not. You're bait. I didn't respond to anything. Yes, you did, she snapped. You engaged. That's enough. They're building a case. I stepped back. My heart was doing that thing again, fluttering, skipping, clenching in my throat. What did you sell, Marcy? I asked. What the hell did you pull me into? She laughed. Soft. Almost pitying. God, you really don't get it, do you? That painting wasn't just art. It was a transfer. A message. That collector? He's not a collector. He's a courier. That piece, it was a signal. A payout. It doesn't matter now. Why use my name? Because you were boring, Callan, she hissed. Because you didn't ask questions. Because you spent 5 years letting me walk all over you and thanking me for it. You were safe. The man behind her finally spoke. This conversation's over. Marcy raised a hand to stop him. I looked at her, really looked. Not as my wife. Not even as someone I once loved. But as a stranger in my basement, soaked and shaking and dangerous. You framed me, I said quietly. No, she replied. I borrowed you. You could have stayed ignorant. You chose this. Then she pulled a USB stick from her pocket and tossed it onto the couch. There. Every file. Every name. Every wire transfer. Delete it. Walk away. Be the quiet man you were so good at being. I didn't pick it up. She turned to leave. Don't follow us, the man said. Don't contact her again. You won't like how this ends if you do. The door closed behind them, and I stood there, staring at that tiny black flash drive. Burning. Buzzing. Begging to be opened. The USB sat on the edge of the couch for 2 full days. I didn't touch it. Didn't move it. Just watched it from across the room like it was radioactive. I knew it held everything. The files, the proof, the trail that could bring her down. Or me with her. Or both of us together, locked in some spiral we'd never escape from. The messages from Hall kept coming. Not often. Just enough to feel like footsteps behind me. Did she give you the drive? It's not too late to do the right thing. They'll protect you if you cooperate. But I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Because something in me had shifted. Not with fury. Not with revenge. But with clarity. She was gone. Not just out of the apartment. Not just out of my life. She was gone from that space in my head she'd lived rent-free in for years. And that was more freeing than anything on that drive. So I packed up my bag, left the basement, and drove out of town. Not far. Just far enough. A cheap Airbnb on the edge of a lake that didn't have great cell service. I watched the water move for hours. Did nothing. Said nothing. Thought everything. On the third morning, I walked into a little bookstore cafe that smelled like cinnamon and paper. And that's where I met Hazel. She was shelving used books by spine color. Said it helped her anxiety. I asked if she had anything for a man who didn't know what to read because he forgot who he was. She smiled and handed me a battered copy of The Stranger. Start with something honest, she said. I came back the next day. And the one after. We talked about music. About birds. About nothing. She didn't ask about Marcy. I didn't bring her up. A week passed. Then two. One afternoon, as I sat by the lake with the sun on my face and my phone finally turned off, I realized something I never thought I'd feel again. I wasn't waiting anymore. Not for her to call. Not for the truth to come out. Not for justice or closure or revenge. I was just here, breathing, whole. And when I finally tossed the USB drive into the deepest part of the lake, I didn't feel regret. I felt weightless. Not today, I whispered. Not ever again.